We were right by the lake.
Yeah.
We're east of the Lake Erie, and so it gets a lot of dump of snow. I see
Yeah.
Venerable Kedrup's here.
Oh yeah.
Hi everybody. Yeah, welcome.
Hi.
Yeah, let's just give everybody maybe 5 minutes to trickle in, but welcome and thanks so much for coming. I guess since I have everybody here, I should talk a little bit about the programs that we have coming up maybe. We've just been in discussions about, kind of how to finish off the term. So, meaning like sort of pre-January. So we'll continue with these. The last session of these before Christmas, I believe, is going to be on the 16th or 17th of December. So this will pretty much, continue right through until the Christmas holiday. And then we'll take a little break. But His Holiness the Dalai Lama, on either the 30th, the 29th or the 30th, I believe it's the 30th of December, is going to give the initiation of the 21 forms of Tara. So, and that will be streamed, at least according to the website. So if you go to dalailama.com and click on schedule, you can see His Holiness's schedule. And this is one of the events that's going to be happening in December, amongst others. So the idea that we had was that although we love the Lama Tsongkhapa retreat, maybe we'll do a Lama Tsongkhapa or a Ganden Lagyama teaching later in the year and do something related to the 21 Taras for the Christmas retreat this year. So Geshe will give some sort of commentary in 2 sessions. He's currently deciding if it's going to be a commentary on the 21 Taras themselves or more of an instruction on the self-generation, but he's leaning towards the 21 Taras. And so this will be our New Year's retreat. And yeah, that'll be like 3 days. So like maybe the 31st, the 1st, and the 2nd, or the 30th, the 31st, and the 1st. We still have to work out those dates, but keep an eye on our website. And I guess that is all I had to share. And I see that we are 2 minutes until 10. So make yourselves comfortable, grab a cup of tea or coffee, and we will get started very soon. I'm just going to invite Geshe down. Great to see everybody. Another thing that I did today, which we'll try, and you give me feedback if it doesn't work out, but Manoshi mentioned that when we had our technical difficulties last week, one of the nice things was that things were a little bit closer up so that you could kind of see Geshe a little bit more closer up. So I've adjusted the camera so that it's zoomed in. So let me know what you think, if you think this is better or how we had it before. Comments are welcome. I will turn down the volume and we will get started. Agi. All right. So can you hear and see us? Okay, great. All right. Yeah, I guess my head is a bit low. Sorry. All right, hopefully that's a little bit better. So is this Zoom okay for everybody? Okay, great. Just okay. Yeah, sorry for the delay. So first of all, Geshe hopes that everybody is healthy. He hopes that you are all well, and he hopes that you are all happy. So also see the words that are spoken not just as kind of meaningless words or fluff. We understand that actually these are words of precious knowledge. It is as if we have arrived on an island filled with jewels. So we want to be able to take some to bring back with us. So sorry, Geshe is quoting from the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, which he has memorized and I don't. But the essence of the meaning is, now that we have this human rebirth, what are we able to accomplish? If we bring forth, if we think about and cultivate love, compassion, and bodhicitta, we can accomplish a great transformation. Just as iron, even if it has been iron for hundreds of years, if we use quicksilver, right? We're talking alchemy here. If we use quicksilver, regardless of the fact that it has been iron for many thousands of years, it can transform into gold. And so let's consider here, though, of course, if any of you have already achieved the state of an Arya, of a superior being, you're an exception. But nominally, most of us in this human form, we understand that as an ordinary being, our body is in the nature of samsara. But with this human body and this human mind together, at that moment, intersecting with that we call the I, or that we call the self, we have this precious opportunity, like a wish-fulfilling vase or a wish-granting gem. It is more precious than that. So if we think about all of those reasonings, we see that we really have arrived on a jewel island, right? This is not kind of like a meaningless statement. Oh. But in order to achieve all of these things that we mentioned, we need to make sure that we have physical and mental health. We need to have a healthy body and also a peaceful, stable mind. This is very important. And in order for the body and the mind to have kind of this this feature of stability, right? This feature of clarity, then we need to make sure that within the body, these four elements of earth, fire, wind, and water are stable, are in equilibrium. Yeah, so Geshe is just explaining kind of the Tibetan medicine point of view, which is that when these four elements are out of balance, right? When these four elements are out of balance, this affects our organs and like the organisms that live within those organisms and help them function. So then our liver our kidneys, our gallbladder, and so forth, we can experience illnesses related to all these.
야, 너블이 셜록 따라 지바 하와스, 자가 파티 리바서서 파티. 이제나 레소나, 여러 뭐 이런 거 와스. 사실 리바제다
Naso supola, ale.
me 셜록.
Ale, loso.
리바제다 그러면 사실 사kel 레소나. 여러 뭐 이런 거 와스.
Condition gres.
야, 캐나다 리바제다 지금 사실 사소나.
Ale, loso. Yeah, okay. So I didn't get the comparison, but anyways, Geshe said that when it becomes out of equilibrium, it is as if, like an invading force of people comes into your country and sort of takes it over, right? So you lose kind of the equilibrium or the control of the organs.
딱 대노지 놀러라요. 다른 버스서 사실 대는 거라서 나도 리를 거기 배도야 맞냐라요. 다 사실 옛날 파스 주소나. 근데 오늘은 비요.
So it sounds like when these elements are in equilibrium, then the specific organisms that create the enzymes that help the different the organs in our body, they stay kind of in their particular area. But when there's an imbalance, then they're going to the wrong organ, and in this way we can fall into illness. So kind of based upon this understanding, we want to place our body and our mind in a relaxed, peaceful state, and also we want these four elements to be in a place of equilibrium. So we'll take a few moments to do that.
자신 발란다 그랬대. 이 발레레 지금 발이소나 발라라지 발레레 좀 그러고 스테는 좋아서.
So when we quiet the discursive thoughts, we think of the mind as being like an ocean. When the wind stops blowing in the vicinity of the ocean, then any waves that may have been coming up, these can just dissolve back into the stillness of the surface.
The
nature of the mind is like an ocean, vast, clear, unobstructed. All of the conceptual thoughts that we have within the mind, the feelings and the projection, we understand that they are just like the waves on the ocean. They arise and they fall away. They are not permanent. They are in a state of momentary change. But when feelings and thoughts arise, especially unwholesome ones, we reify them. We start to position them, to grasp at them as permanent. And because of that, all sorts of mental unhappiness and difficulties follow. And we know that connected with a mental state which is increasingly having unhappy, unwholesome feelings, that this can also affect our physical health. And all of these problems, right? All of those problems, those results, we can see that ultimately all of them can be traced back to this ignorance grasping at the self.
Banzumari Pinyapa, Tiju Isas, Russo, the Mutaba, Rubatimito, Kalekale, Nesa the Tupashine, Nijana Tenuji.
Understanding that this ignorance grasping at the self and associated with it, this ignorance grasping at permanence, it has all of these faults of reifying those things, then think, I will give rise to a direct realization of the wisdom of impermanence.
Nikal, Sev, Kanime Bajito, Kalekaletini, Tawayashu, Sujilchi, Kasetata Swim, which means.
And in order to bring forth that wisdom, I want to bring forth that wisdom and strengthen it more and more so that I can reach the state of liberation. To do this, I will be stable in the practice. May I request the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to be able to do that. Oh, sorry. Very good. Chom de jin che pa chom ba yon da bar zo pe song re pa tong sha zu dem ba de var shiva jiten gemba chebu du la lo dong gi hong gi ten ba song ge chom den de gya wa cha gya du ba la cha de do che de gya zu chi ho tenba chom den de shi she ba cha chom ba yang da par Sangye riba dang sha su denpa, dewa shepa shiden chenpa, shebu duwe kalu gyowa lana mepa, ladang mi namgi tenpa, sangye chomdende, pechawa shakya tubai loi chase lo chedo kyapsu chi ho. Tenpa chomden de deshin shepa chachompa yandapa zube sangye ripa dang shatsu denpa dewa shepa shiden chenpa chebu duwe kalo gyowa lana mepa lada mi namki tenpa sangye chomden de pechawa shakya tupala chasalo chada kyapsu chi ho. So recite the mandala offering. Saji Fugi Jo Deshe Do Ra So Idam Guru Ratnam Mandalakam Niryatayam. Fusion Bodhicitta. Chedan Soki Chenam Lai Changchuk Bardu Dani Gyasuji Dagi Chinyen Gipe Sonam Jola Penjir Sangye Jogar Sho. Chedan Soki Chenam Lai Changchuk Bardu Dani Gyasuji Dagi Chinyen Gipe Sonam Jola Benshi Sange Jobar Sho. Chedan Sogi Chenam Lai Jangchuk Bardu Dani Gyapsu Chi Dagi Chinyen Gibe Senangi Jola Benshi Sange Jobar Sho. So bring forth the feeling of joy for the session, understanding that we are engaging in the greatest endeavor that we can engage in to make use of this precious human rebirth. And the best way to maximize this opportunity to make use of this human rebirth is through a training that combines in equal measure hearing, contemplation, and meditation. Huh? Yeah. So if you think that at the top of the mountain there is kind of like a pure land, we understand that in order to reach that pure land, we need to climb to the top of the mountain. And so like if we think about where we are on this mountain with our human rebirth, it's kind of like we are at the midway point, right? So depending on our actions, we can either travel upwards or we can travel downwards. And so without training in hearing, contemplation, and meditation, without training in hearing and contemplation, it is said that meditation will not be of much use, that we will be like a person trying to climb a mountain without hands. Yeah. Yeah. And also we understand from this analogy, Geshe said that if we're at the middle of the mountain, ascending the mountain, right, traveling upwards is a little bit more difficult, whereas going downwards is a little bit easier. So that's something we also need to be mindful of. But if we're able to reach the summit, the peak of that mountain, not only will we be able to find stable happiness, we will also be able to help others achieve stable happiness. So that is the kind of excellent results that we are working towards. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So Geshe said that one of the meanings of this mudra when we meditate, right, with the two thumbs together like this kind of triangular shape that makes, the empty space between your fingers, that is actually a reminder of the Rupakaya, the form body of a Buddha. That's one of the objects of attainment we're working towards.
예대주고 더 많이 됐어.
And Geshe said that shape is the reminder of the Rupakaya, the form body, and the fact that it is empty, of itself. This reminds us of the Dharmakaya, the truth body. So when we do this mudra, we can think of these two bodies that are the goal, the form body or Rupakaya, through which we achieve the welfare of others, and the Dharmakaya or truth body, through which we achieve our own welfare. Yeah, Ale. And what is the method that we use to be able to reach the attainment of those form and truth bodies? We can think of the two thumbs as representing the practices of method and wisdom. Through applying both of those together, we reach the result of the two bodies. Yeah. So Geshe said, it's kind of easy to do this mudra and to remind us of the path and the results of that path that we are cultivating, right? That's a useful reminder. But of course, actually achieving those things is a little bit hard than just putting your hands together. So when the body is upright, the channels are upright and malleable. When the channels are upright and malleable, the wind or the prana can flow. Let us just take a moment to settle our posture. Whether we think of ourselves, whether we think of other sentient beings, human, animal, and so forth, all of us share the characteristic of possessing Buddha nature, the potential for enlightenment, and possessing the potential for liberation. And also think any positive mental qualities that I may develop. The cultivation of those positive mental qualities depends upon others. It's possible to develop them only because of the kindness of others. Seeing this relationship of cause and effect, the things that we achieve depend upon others. Based upon that understanding, we think I will only strive to benefit any sentient being, human, animal, and so forth. At a minimum, I will not harm them. And the best way to help them to repay that kindness is to be able to completely free them from the sufferings of samsara. But in terms of who is actually able to accomplish helping them that way, it is only a fully enlightened Buddha. So may I achieve the state of Buddhahood to benefit those beings. And think, for the sake of these 6 types of sentient beings in samsara, in order to benefit them, I definitely must achieve the state of a fully enlightened Buddha. meditate single-pointedly on bodhicitta.
And there's Sunji to Kararis and Sunji to Alapache Sheki, Senji Tangalo, that's him, Denimali.
Can I achieve the state of Buddhahood to benefit others? It is definitely possible. Why is it definitely possible? Because the obstacles that are hindering my attainment of Buddhahood, they are the afflicted minds, and the afflicted minds have no basis in reasoning whatsoever.
Shumba Niji, Tuni Turishiraj, Yatetsema, Kazibuya, Isata, Tended to.
On the other hand, these qualities such as love, compassion, and wisdom realizing emptiness, they are thoroughly grounded in reason. Every aspect of them is based on valid reasoning. Therefore, they can flourish. So thinking about this, we mustn't get discouraged, and we must strive towards these attainments with a joyful mind. I can definitely achieve this.
Yeah. Yes, ma.
No,
Oh, that can that Cheshu that Hasham about in Jitsawachi said that no Yashu, Ya Cheshu, oh, that it was.
So we brought forth the very best, most supreme motivation for our practice, which is that bodhicitta, which is rooted in great love and great compassion.
Oh, that is that thing with me, that's when you compare to Shapala, Tata, Momo, Gabala, Dunata, Mano, Chatsmo, is not mine, Gabuchi.
To be able to achieve that state of Buddhahood, we need a method which is both complete and unmistaken. And we are engaging with such an unmistaken and complete method today. So we are very fortunate.
Oh, that is you said, Kafuma Kijamo, Shari, some people to Nozo, Kalejama, Nozin, Kamachi, Kalejario, Maradeo, Hakoga. Yeah. The Kalejama Noji.
Kan this Paupo Chingi Dona,
Mimi,
Midi Casa Calajogi.
Oh, the Pachiyarwa.
Yeah. So Geshe said, the nice thing too, Geshe said, remember all of the teachings that are contained within this King of Prayers. This is the result of, what was his name? Of Sudana going to all of those teachers and waiting all of those years, and he distilled it into kind of this essence, which actually just takes a few moments for us to recite. So we are very fortunate. And also when we think about Sudana, right, this should be something that encourages and invigorates us, invigorates us to be able to bring forth that necessary joyous effort.
And as we say, Melota didn't mean that Melo said that that Melo read Roas, Ina, so Malos let on boy, Yoleto Yan Drogers, she got on Momogus.
So Geshe said also, when we say the King of Prayers, certainly it is an aspiration, it is a prayer, but many great beings have said that actually the King of Prayers is instructions for practice, especially for people at the beginning of the path. So we should see the contents of this prayer as instructions for practice, actually.
Yes, one was, or that should you see, should you send my truck, and let's all Karakara go Uzujaki, Metkoroyo, that's so what one was.
And so it was really an explanation of, if one wants to become a bodhisattva and to engage in the bodhisattva conduct, what are the things that one needs to do? The prayer is actually explaining all of those.
This one,
Mhm.
or that thing with the young Julius early, yes, or that Joasena, that doing the mellow part for Subamoya, 10 to be just Miss Yasojo, and in your letter, yes.
So adangjanwa, right? And so the beginning, the middle, and the end, Geshe said, when we look at the beginning sections of the prayer, in order to create the conditions to achieve the practice, we see that they are mainly aimed at the accumulation of merit, and the purification of negativities and obscurations.
All that to the Kachime Kazi met and Moshi Savares, Hakozarwa, Pena, Lovineta Chajana,
Loso.
Lama Timothy, you are then for Nayo, and Yawashambachi took to say, Yawashamata, Mutsen Delator, do for Mutsetel, Lenga Mamosa Savisa. So the departure of the Kaya Pochana, Yawashima in the two.
And the importance of the accumulation of merit and the purification of obscurations is illustrated by many histories, many stories of the great beings. So many of you will be familiar with the brothers Asanga and Vasubandhu. It is said that Asanga had a interaction, a vision of Maitreya, and Vasubandhu also wanted to be able to meet the Buddha Maitreya. However, Maitreya told Asanga that because of Vasubandhu's criticizing the Dharma in that lifetime, he had accumulated great negative karma. But if he engaged in the practices of purification and accumulation of merit, he would be able to encounter Maitreya in his future lifetime.
Oh, this one, oh, that they would eat this, and just take it over to us. What Amazon Kapala is in Jamaica, take you over to Marata, so that you will catch him with Stella Tenetanipa, so that you judge him to us.
And similarly with Lama Tsongkhapa, we know that in his encounters with the Buddha of wisdom, Manjushri, right, when Manjushri told him his understanding of emptiness was not exactly correct, Manjushri instructed him to go and engage in the practices of accumulation of merit and purification of negativities. And he did so very intensely for a period of several years.
Oh, this one, oh, that they went to yellow, did the gathering to us, so some minutes what is the Pugaju Techena, but Selina, Tanya call general in the yard.
And also the 7-point or the 7-limbed prayer. This is something that may seem kind of like so normal for us, but actually, if we have feeling for it, if we have a real feeling and attention to it, the 7-limb prayer is actually something that will allow us to perfectly every day in a very easy and a relaxed way complete a full accumulation of merit.
Listen. Too many the things you said, you know, so I do the yellow this had for church.
And if you really have feelings for emptiness and dependent arising, in other words, the feeling that you want to be able to realize, to understand emptiness and dependent arising, then for the accumulation and purification, the 6 preparatory practices, and within those, the 7 limbs, these are something extremely essential.
Because was what to manage to talk as a chess on a Jedu Chakanga, or Jedu Chel, Tibajima, Matiba Chijam Hako with Dilla. That's the Karisha, you cheat to yellow didn't know point we to us.
And so we understand, right, if we think about the realization of emptiness and the realization of dependent arising, we understand that realizations arise from a cause. Realizations are a result. So they arise from a cause. They arise from the accumulation of merit and the purification of negativities. Therefore, if we want the realization of emptiness, dependent arising, or indeed any other positive mental quality, these preparatory practices within the 6 preparatory practices and the 7 limbs are something absolutely essential.
What that you know, and it to forget Lojo do Yolezo, reach you, Karasuya, Chatsuma Pakoni, the address as Jackie was.
Chaksama Palkone said, Tompanimato, Donamate.
To me, Manila, Donomat, you do Pachu many.
Achigame.
I should get on which is another Tenizapa.
Loso. And in terms of the realization of emptiness and the study and practice of emptiness, especially as we get to meditation, there are traditions which say that actually in order to realize emptiness, we need to kind of empty our mind of thoughts, to just not think of anything. So there is this view that is out there. Huh?
big tipa.
Ale.
Men pa yu jagina.
Yeah.
She the train ko tin ro gro.
Yeah, yeah.
Agus so the train si to marwa.
Yeah, yeah. How goes
Ta cha to pa kwa jara.
Uh-huh.
Agus ro. Ani kono kwa karseka. Men yu ba no je. Kono chi ge ya ba chi ro gres. Chi mugi ate chi mares.
Sorry.
Oh, na so le de ro. Ta na do te ro mare. Cha to kwa ya mare. So the change that me was on the
So, of course, that is actually not the way that we approach it, right? We think through assembling the conditions of the correct thinkings and reasonings that this is how one is able to realize emptiness. And so we'll come to more discussion of that later as we discuss the text. And so in terms of the activities at the beginning, the preparation, the middle, and the end, in the activities of the beginning, the preparation, we have been on the 7 limbs. And out of those 7 limbs, we have completed 6. So, and then in terms of these 7 limbs, remember the point that Geshe said about making them accumulation, purification, and for the flourishing, the attainments. And it is said that if we think about the main purpose of these, that out of those 7 limbs, 4.5, so 4.5 of those 7 limbs are gewasaya, mainly for the practice of accumulation. So 4.5 of the 7 limbs are mainly related to the practice of accumulation. And it did pajangwa. Mari not so that yes, not so saya than any but deepa jangwa, then it shape yanarwa. And then in terms of the purification of obscurations, this is the confession of misdeeds. Yeah. And in terms of the increase or the flourishings of understanding, this is also 1.5 in number. So Geshe said, if you think about it in this way, it makes it easier to kind of conceptualize the picture. Ale sheka sosaya dang sheka karere jisuyra. Yeah. Yeah. The sosaya, right? Yeah. So in terms of the practices of accumulation within this prayer, in terms of the practices of accumulation, the making of prostrations, the making of offering, the practice of requesting the turning of the wheel of the Dharma and requesting not to pass away, as well as half of rejoicing, rejoicing specifically in the virtues of others. These are seen as mainly the practice of accumulation. And so in terms of the 1.5, the final of the 7 limbs, the dedication of merits, and the half of rejoicing, which is rejoicing in your own good deeds. So that 1.5, this is related to the increase or the flourishing of qualities. And confession, Geshe said, confession, we relate that directly to the purification of obscurations. So we have the accumulation, the purification, and the flourishing or the increasing related to each of those.
다 이나 또 세계화 말 왜 강가 파지려 매바 말다.
And also, this doesn't mean that within these different practices, they don't relate to each other and all of them have an aspect of accumulation or purification. Of course, they all do, but we're talking about the main function of each of the 7 limbs in this division.
다노 매난 하리 소세 알레 노 지천 노여시 갈다기.
Yeah, so Geshe said that if he's not mistaken, this is the correct way to divide them. But of course, you know, if someone has a different understanding, welcome to share.
다 어딘지서 다 타만간조 드링의야가 달아야 돼. 스테만도이스.
And so Geshe said, where does that leave us today? It leaves us with the limb of dedication. And that's where we're going to begin with the new part of the text that we haven't covered.
어디서와 어떤 샤자와 좀 제지셔봐 좀 지서유로 끝이서와 이게와 주제 나기 째서봐 거기 나기 정주 성고고.
So we're on page number 5 for those of you who are following. Whatever slight positive potential I may have created by paying homage, offering, and acknowledging my faults, rejoicing and requesting that the Buddhas stay and teach, I now dedicate all this for full awakening.
야 소소를 샤타타와 왔어.
Yeah.
샤타타와를 당연히 진짜 신도 사다린 게 대세도
So Geshe said, presumably we have accomplished all of these, like offering the homage. At least we've recited the words. Whether we've really done that with our full mind, who knows? But we've recited these parts of the prayer.
그건 사기 샤타와 제와피와 디바샤바 지세제로와 봐? 어느 지고고 가와 리스와 드리고 겨와 고 겨와 주제서 사바 고연바 대신.
So it's all of the merits. So we're amassing all of those merits that we gathered together through each of the 7 limbs by homage or prostration, offering, confession, rejoicing, requesting the turning of the Dharma wheel and not passing away. And we dedicate all of that to the result of awakening.
다 고연 같은 게 들어가서 다 비출어 두고 배스 강가 로로 쇼네 너게 쇼주 타되고 쇼주 더 비셔도 세제 요소가 되는 타되고 쇼주 더 비셔도 뭐.
So we understand that here all of this is being dedicated so that none of it is wasted on something less meaningful. All of it is dedicated to full awakening. And full awakening here, of course, is pointing at that state of achieving Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings.
어성모 쇼주 성모고 다 무슨 바뼈와 다 뭐자고 그러was. 빼나.
Yeah.
빼나 노노라 요아라와. 제타자서 chen 제틀이 야저 마세 바데 데마세 대제 쇼주 정이 개와요. 아니 쇼주 마도 바데 데마세 세페나 치포바고 야저는 바이나.
So why do we dedicate to full enlightenment? We do this based upon the instructions of the Buddha in the sutras. So the Buddha says that whatever merit, no matter how small, is dedicated to supreme enlightenment, an aspect of that merit remains until enlightenment is realized. Just like if we pour a drop of water into an ocean, a portion of that drop remains as long as the ocean has not dried up. So that's why it's important to dedicate to full enlightenment. So even if we just have a short time to engage in the virtuous practice, if we empower that virtue with this dedication, some of that positive potential is going to remain with us right until we achieve that final state of enlightenment. So if we look at the true holy beings of this world, look at their vast activities, almost the incomprehensibly vast activities that they are engaging to benefit sentient beings. How did they become capable of doing that? It was through amassing merit and dedicating in this way. This is exactly how. Yeah. So there are a lot of people, right? We understand that a lot of people have this narrative of, there's no past and future lifetimes. And so whatever I have that I can enjoy, I'm just going to enjoy this now. When the holy beings look at those people, they actually have like a sense of compassion for them, because by just enjoying, but not further striving in meritorious activities, they're exhausting the results of their virtue, and they won't have the benefit of that merit in the future.
단에서 드리지 시고지가 시고서는 뭐야 미에네서 요아이다 바데다가 잡게라 침보티가 하고 시지면은 무슨 세변나 시제 때나 무슨 주문죠
Ale, non so Yeshe, right? Oh, yeah.
하고서
하고서.
어머니 거는 다치 다 레비까지.
Yeah. So Geshe said that understanding that, Chandrakirti gave this particular advice. So I'm going to read, I'll read the scripture. So for those of you who are interested, you can find this in the Madhyamakavatara, the entering the middle way. So Chandrakirti says, having exhausted all your investments, later these will not yield much comfort. So that's his warning.
당가루스 개왕고야 제 달아마스 빼자위다. 그래서 개왕고야 돼. 빼리라고 시켜봐 얘는다. 빼나 빼야 소소 빼산다고 지. 매 tempo치는 잡아도 지바래.
So Geshe said the lamas explain this, right? And we see very, even with these early masters, right? When we dedicate our merits, it's like putting them in a savings account where they'll continue to accumulate interest. So it's like choosing a good bank and putting them in a savings account.
다 템포스 그러마도 오지만아리 바 코로 바바티가 잘라 간가 코로 비자 아그사토네.
Yeah. And so Geshe said, make sure you pick the dedication wisely, just as you would choose your bank wisely. Look at all the problems Milarepa underwent because his late father trusted the wrong uncle with all of his investments, right? And the family ended up in poverty. So we have to dedicate our merits carefully.
아마테 간딩이 바치 아마테 제가시만 러사를 때니 이나요. 아니 저렇게 인지 멘트 다 mất 지싱아시 세나 대지보 페먼투스.
Yeah.
신가 강가메 가서 맞더니.
And also remember the kind of the slippery slope that started for Milarepa and his family, right? The mother being so upset by the betrayal of the family that she says, don't just get revenge on them now. You have to learn this black magic so that you can even destroy their crops for years to come. So Geshe said, related to these many stories in the scriptures about the dedication of merit, there's another one, but we want to move through the text. So maybe if there's time at the end, he'll share it then. Chatsang Romason, Kangse Rangwang. So Geshe wanted to share another scripture, another quotation with you from the same scripture, the Madhyamakavatara, the entering of the middle way by Chandrakirti. Dwelling independently in an agreeable place, one may still not be able to stay. Falling into an abyss and losing one's independence, how will one get out later on? Yeah.
So
Geshe said that these verses are heavy, right? But there's also a positive aspect of what they're saying, right? That right now, because of our investments, we have a measure of independence, right? We have a measure of freedom in our current situation. Shawa. Yeah. And also we can receive the help of the holy beings. Geshe was remembering a reflection of His Holiness the Dalai Lama when His Holiness manifested illness. He was in a hospital in Mumbai, and there were some deer and other beautiful creatures outside on the hospital grounds. And he said, these are lovely creatures and I want to benefit them. But apart from praying for them to have a positive rebirth, there isn't much I can do to benefit them directly. So right now we have this independence, and not only this independence, but the freedom to be able to work towards and generate any positive mental quality, to be able to work towards and experience any realization that we set our mind to. So now that we have completed those sections of the 7 limbs, we come to the part of the prayer that is called the nuji, so the actual practice. And so Geshe is explaining that within the sort of main body of the prayer, the nuji, there are actually 16 outlines. You could actually expand it to many more, but the commentators usually give 16 main outlines. Yeah, so the main ones are 16 in number. So the first of these 16 is given like this. The aspiration through superior intention. The aspiration through superior intention. Sometimes it's said given through a pure mind, but Geshe actually said superior intention is really the meaning here. So the aspiration through superior intention. Gone is actually literally through the door of superior intention. So Geshe said this pure mind, yeah, it really is talking about an intention that is completely unstained and pure as the basis. And so within this superior intention, we could have like 4 subheadings, if you will. So the first prayer is a prayer made to be able to make offerings equal in quality to the offerings of Samantabhadra, to all of the Buddhas of the past and present, in order to be able to make those same offerings in the future to the Buddhas yet to come. Yeah. Mare di chedu. Yeah. It's okay. Geshe was worried I told you you're making them to the future Buddhas. No, you're making them to the past and the present Buddhas, right? In order to be able to make those offerings to the future. Yes. You can see he will be able to catch my errors, so that's a good thing. So Geshe said here we're actually dividing the components of the prayer to the objects of worship, like the past, the present, as well as the future holy beings. So as we continue with the actual prayer, may you Buddhas now living in the worlds of the 10 directions, and all you gone to freedom in the past, accept my offering. So we see very clearly here the past and the present Buddhas. So in terms of the Buddhas of the past, nanzo tumbachum de debatsigirebe. Chutang, shakatupa. Karin sanatanda yomare. Amako. So I was just asking Geshe when we speak of the past Buddhas, because he was mentioning some of the past Buddhas, like Kashyapa, Dipamkara, and so forth. When we talk about the Buddhas of this fortunate aeon, we know that Shakyamuni is the 4th. And I said that, Shakyamuni manifested the passing away into paranirvana. So does that mean that Shakyamuni Buddha, we also regard him as a past Buddha? So Geshe said, nominally we would consider him to be a Buddha of the past, but he has a doubt about this, because Shakyamuni said that wherever the Prajna Paramita, the perfection of wisdom sutras, are studied and practiced, he abides in that very place. So maybe from that angle, he's a present Buddha, right? Yeah. But whatever is more beneficial for your mind, you can think of it in that way. So all of them gone to freedom in the past, that's those past Buddhas, and also all of the Buddhas now living in the worlds of the 10 directions. So that means like countlessly filling space. All of those Buddhas present at the moment, making offerings. Those are the present ones, making offerings to the past and the present Buddhas.
소소노도야 저한테 담이 되면서 강같이 말이다. 이 로시에 계산도 지바 소소 대화 공사 받 고로를 봐. 비교요라고 소노도.
So the vastness of these words, what this is supposed to facilitate in our mind is an offering that is complete of our body, wealth, and enjoyments, as well as our roots, all of our roots of virtue. It's facilitating being able to offer up all of those.
그래서 다 대노지겠더니 제반나서 바꾼 좀 제가 가서 게테스 자사로 왔어. 대노지 가서 터더세 자치고 소노도니 나다 피와도 마고발라 이제 여 마치가 근데 피와쇼 나고.
And also, it's a prayer that our offerings can be like Samantabhadra's offerings, which are filling the extent of space, right? The quality of Samantabhadra's offerings is that they are inexhaustible. And by offering and aspiring in this way, what we do is we create the cause to be able to continuously make offerings in an unbroken continuum in all of our future lifetimes. So that's another important thing.
대티한테 같이 뭐 지도서
Oh, loso.
다 마고베 수지라였더니 야한테 노지 제반 좋았다.
식로 마선다.
고용 맛이 대다라냐와 소주 정주를 봐. 손지시에.
And now for the Buddhas yet to come. So we continue in second paragraph on page 5. May those not yet arisen quickly perfect their minds, awakening as fully enlightened ones.
다대가는 고용 맛이 대다라냐와 소주 정주를 봐. 손지시에 세도와 고용 맛이 봐. 다다 사 손지사 로마차와지 마고발은 로왕해봐. 니티 로바도 몰라봐.
Oh, okay.
로바도 몰라봐. 네, 조지세봐. 사티요하러와 사티요하래 돌롬바 뭐요하러와 된다 간디지요가 이나에 대다 손바 이것도 주비체다.
Yeah, tis already. So Geshe said that. Sorry, needs to stop at some point so I can keep up. So Geshe said that in terms of what we are praying here, it's that those those beings who will become Buddhas but have not yet become Buddhas can complete their trainings and fully perfect their minds, so that those not on the paths may enter the paths, those on the paths before learning may enter the path of no more learning, that they may complete all of the 10 bhumis, the 10 grounds of the Bodhisattva and so forth, and reach perfect enlightenment. So Geshe said some lamas joke that it's like they sort of say, we're kind of asking them not to just relax in their cultivation, right? To quickly achieve Buddhahood so that they can start helping us, right? We don't want to wait around for them to achieve enlightenment. We want them to achieve Buddhahood so that they can help us. So we're dedicating all of the virtues of our body, speech, and mind amassed in the past, present, and future to them quickly achieving enlightenment. That's like a wake-up call for them. Like, don't be kind of satisfied at the level of attainment where you are, but quickly certify to enlightenment so that you can help us and all sentient beings. So whether they are a practitioner on the Shravaka, the Hira vehicle, whether they are on the Bodhisattva vehicle, those who have entered the path, we want them to be able to go to increasingly higher and higher levels, to be able to eventually complete all of the bhumis and achieve the state of unsurpassed enlightenment.
순제도 순제 삼바서 제한다고 지고 걸어야 니라고 지금 두만년은 용바 땡보자니 거야 농토매 녹음매이다 제지라 때는 고두만년을 시동하서 그거야.
Oh, nyamjakne yasegoreda. So Geshe said that this could also relate to something else, sajeparwa. This could relate to the Bodhisattva and who he or she is on the 8th ground, the 8th bhumi. And at the time they're on the 8th ground, the 8th bhumi, they are said to be in meditative equipoise on emptiness. And that meditative equipoise on emptiness is kind of so peaceful that it's not so easy to rouse them from that state of meditative equipoise.
야 소지조 된데 어때레스 도이노는 깔레자 같이 좀에서 소사 중에서 사자와 되는 두만년 여바주안이 파티시로 되는
Yeah. And this is also with Shakyamuni Buddha, you know, who collected the merits of 3 incalculable eons. Sachupa mare, ro sajepa sachupa e.
소지조 된데
Ale, jeba mare.
당기대 지원 로차 송아
Ale,
안다 전다 시기도
ale, losa.
된데 사자와 받을래서 송아
Ale, dene.
도이 하고서
Yeah.
다 두만년 여바주안이 그때 뭐지는 되는 아이다
Ale.
아니 뒤에서 손지 관계가 뒤에서는 그 두만년 시 여자를 동화시
Ale, dene gupa dang chupa tsar tupsa. Tanda di rewa. Kanisana jeba konso mare. Konso nyamshak de jeba re duwa di ko tumsong.
코로로 같이 있어와
Ale, losa.
사제와 코로로 도치 요아래
Yeah, okay.
다 수제 전에데 이나요
Ale, losa.
이봐
Ale, okay.
하고서와
Yeah, di ko tumsong.
너 일을 ጭ볼라 때는 전에서 사제와 받은 코로차 송아스
Ale, losa. Okay.
하고서
Yep.
다 뒤에 영바자는 코치 도움에 알자
Ale.
오 손지 야전다더니 콜지에서네라
Yep.
다 저래 될 때서 대마대 막 손지 단도리 ጭ볼라 때는 더 말이 오 권이 나와 돈이야
Ale, okay, sorry. So I was confused because Geshe was talking about Shakyamuni's journey. Shakyamuni's journey. So I was thinking that he was talking about the 8th bhumi still, where they're in meditative equipoise. But what Geshe was explaining was that Shakyamuni Buddha actually, as he was going through the 9th and the 10th bhumis, right? The 9th and the 10th grounds, he was practicing only according to sutra. So he remained in this kind of meditative equipoise on the ultimate nature of reality. And even when he was at the Sachupa Konso Yarse Gochunsorwa, and even when he was on the 10th bhumi, what happened is that the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas had to sort of awaken him from that equipoise and encourage him to enter the path of Tantra, to receive Abhisheka and enter the path of Tantra, so that he would be able to complete his enlightenment.
다 들까래 뭐 자사회 등아도 당기때 수다도 주대도 지발했어. 수다도 주세는 뒤찬 로봇 내가 뭐 슈치 뭐 제사와이자.
Yeah.
군다지를 뭐 그냥 이제 쉽게 손치발해.
And because of Shakyamuni, right, we talked about those immeasurable eons of accumulation and purification, because all of that was in place before, it is said that he received the Abhisheka, the empowerment that evening, and by morning, he had already reached that state of final enlightenment. Yeah, so he had an easy time, right, because of his previous work.
다 들으시면서 봐.
Loso.
다 되게 당긴 가서 다 지지는 동안에 지시는 게 있는데 다 단대 등기는 와서. 쇼지 선바스이나 다 레레서는 마대로 유보야 노를 지시는 가서 저 대서 하다가 와서.
So Geshe said that this is actually really a request, right? If we think about this prayer, it's actually a request. Those of you who are bodhisattvas now, you know, finish that evolution to Buddhahood quickly, please. It's kind of a request for them to do that.
민단대 저서 뭐 요하다. 가시에 용 손지 세포게 다 놀랬다다 만드는 바제들이 요나. 바제 매바도 손지 세포게 놀래 다시 뭐 요약 된다. 소하다.
And it is actually said that some of the bodhisattvas, they may have different kind of like hindrances or obstacles to being able to complete that journey. And so actually making this prayer and this request, it's actually an assist. It's an assistance in bringing forth the conditions that could clear away those obstacles. So it's a very valuable practice.
어다 알면 못 왔어. 뒤에서만. 어다 만도 로베 쇼노라 이때 바제도 쉬송았어. 로베 쇼노.
Sholom.
Oh,
Alelo.
Ale.
Dedu kosa yorebe. Jangshu Semba Sakare. So Geshe reminds you of how those obstacles can manifest. If you think about the great Pandita Dharmakirti, Cholang, right? So Dharmakirti, he was already on the Bodhisattva path of accumulation, but he thought, I can't possibly help all sentient beings, right? And he was about to give up his bodhicitta. So making these kind of prayers can help to clear away such obstacles.
다 뭐야 뭐도 다 써도 쓰이나요? 원래도 그렇게 다시 뭐 이야기 된 소는 또 우지세 뭐 뭐요.
So we can think not just in terms of bodhicitta, but indeed any person in the world who is practicing love, who is practicing compassion, may they quickly reach the perfection of that love and compassion. May they realize that love and compassion of their particular practice.
어떤 간주 미 투야나 시고시 뭐 뭐냐래야 뭐지 다만요래 요로야 다들 뭐뭐 요아로스.
And we see also so many people who, because of their good practice in their life, they achieve a sort of remarkable death, right? We still see examples of that today.
어디 봐지? 예수와
What is
니노스.
니저스. Pasal kata cepat ni cepat.
다 쓴바. 손지기 시중앙 멤버.
Sangyegi Xing Zhongwa Menpa. So the next one, in terms of these outlines, the next verse is known as purifying the basis of the Pure Lands, or purifying the basis of the Buddha fields.
손지기 시중앙 멤버스 당나도 가면 손지가로 갈래갈래 손지 사 손지가로 손지가 샤발라 손지 사자요. That's taking your
So Geshe said, how does this relate to us? Because all of us want to achieve Buddhahood, right? And when you achieve that state of Buddhahood, you need a Buddha field where you will dwell. And that Buddha field just doesn't come about sort of like automatically or willy-nilly, right? You as the Buddha have to kind of create that Buddha field, create that Pure Land. So this relates to that. And so this purification of the future Buddha field, it has two aspects of purification: the purification of the place or the abode, and the purification of the sentient beings or the beings within it, right? Because of course, if you have a lot of trouble making sentient beings, it will be difficult to have a pure land, right? So this aspect of purifying the Buddha field, remember, it has two steps of purification: the purification of the abode, the place, and the purification of the inhabitants. So the first two lines of this verse are related to the purification of the abode, and the second two lines of this verse are related to the purification of the inhabitants of that abode. Yeah. So Geshe, so I'm supposed to try to do first-person translation. I keep forgetting about that. So when we think about this, so when we think about this, we have a real feeling it's like almost entertaining to make these prayers and to think about them, right? And that's the sort of attitude of wonder we should have. We have all of these objects of wonderment that Kedrup somehow manages to, it is what it is. What can I say? Yeah, so the first one, purifying the abode. Purifying the inhabitants. Tambo Oh, right. Sorry. May all worlds in the 10 directions be entirely pure and vast. May they be filled with bodhisattvas surrounding Buddhas gathered beneath a bodhi tree. So this is the purification of the abode, the first verse. So any of the lands in the 10 directions, that means any of the 10 directions within this place of samsara, through these merits that we have accumulated of body, speech, and mind, we dedicate these that they may all be transformed into a Buddha field. And so in this way, it's a beautiful, vast kind of beautiful realm. It transforms into that.
시도 야보다 드리시와 그것은 formally
And you also remember Shantideva's prayer in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara that may the hell realms also become pure fields filled with beautiful trees, flowers, and so forth. It's a similar prayer to that, right? We're talking about all of samsara.
샤말라 이도 뭐 빠소시도 주가쇼 세시 빠소게 시들이 니죠다 대대와 tekki 드리시와 그것은
May those formerly difficult realms, praise Shantideva, be filled with wish-fulfilling trees, trees that can fulfill the needs of any inhabitants of those places. We also understand that in terms of Sukhavati, or the land of great bliss, right, that the manifestation of that pure land arose through the previous prayers of Amitabha, right? So we're making the same types of prayers. So next is the purification of the inhabitants. May as many beings exist in the 10 directions be always well and happy. So in may all of those beings who exist in those realms achieve like that state of what Buddha achieved. May they follow his example of achieving enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. But in order to be able to do that, right, you don't get enlightenment right away. So they have to engage in the practices of the bodhisattvas. And so that means to live in accord with the Dharma. So may all of those samsaric beings live in accord with the Dharma, not engaging in all sorts of different activities, right? But living according to the Buddha's advice. So in order for all of this to come about, the Pure Land and so forth, we need to amass the correct causes and conditions. And so in order to better understand also causes and conditions, we will have a brief discussion now of in praise of dependent arising. Yeah. Shloka logo the consultago shoko tuntu. Yeah. So Geshe is going to just explain some of the previous verses, some important elements that he wanted to sort of bring out. So I won't read each of those verses individually, but when we come to the new material from In Praise of Dependent Arising, I'll read that. So in terms of what we covered, we explained that the first verse of this is actually the verse of homage. The verse of homage, sometimes translated as the expression of worship. So some lamas explain that verse number 1, I bow to you, omniscient one, and so forth, that this is actually what is known as the Lu Namjak. So the presentation of the body. That's basically a table of contents. But a lot of lamas say it's the homage. Geshe actually holds that it's the homage, and he says that verse number 2, whatever problems are in the world have ignorance as their root, that this is actually a presentation of the body or an explanation of the contents. So the presentation of the body, it's explaining in terms of like what will be said in this presentation to clarify dependent arising. Yeah. And so in terms of the expression of worship, and So every important text that we look at, it will have these components. So these components are known as the 4 dharmas of necessity. So it'll have something explaining the purpose. It will have something explaining the need for the purpose. It will have something explaining the vital necessity, and it will have something explaining the relationship. If we understand the purpose and the need for the purpose, Geshe said, then we'll see why we need to achieve the object of attainment that is explained in the instructions of the text, and we'll be easily able to strive towards that. So we understand that when we study and practice this text, right, it's not just towards some kind of nebulous sort of thing. There's a very clear thing that we need to attain. There's a purpose to it, and the need for that purpose is very clear. We understand the ultimate purpose, the realization of the text, and the relationship to that of the materials in the text. Sorry, Juja Dang Gupa Daborebe. So in terms of the object to be explained, or the subject of in praise of dependent arising, we understand that it is all of the different types of dependent arising, both coarser and more subtle. And the purpose of it is through understanding the subject matter of both coarse and subtle dependent arising, we will be able to realize in its entirety dependent arising. This is the purpose of the text. If we are a practitioner of the Bodhisattva vehicle and we realize this dependent arising according to the purpose, then we become an Arya Bodhisattva, a superior Bodhisattva. That act of becoming an Arya Bodhisattva, this is the need for the purpose. So we've covered number 1 out of the 4, the purpose and the need for the purpose. And also, if you are a practitioner of the Shravakayana, the vehicle of individual liberation based upon this realization, you become a hearer or a solitary realizer. Yeah. Another angle of looking at this is at that moment we have achieved the actual Dharma jewel. And we know that when we achieve that actual Dharma jewel, right, the mind becomes peaceful. So Dharmakirti explains that we say that samsara has no beginning, but it has an end. So when does the end occur? It occurs with the direct realization of emptiness. And at that moment, not only are all of the afflictions cleared away, but also all of the latencies, the seeds of those previous afflictions. It is as if they were scorched by fire. They have no power to sprout, to bring an unfortunate result. On the basis of the power of that realization, whatever negativities those seeds were deposited from, they are rendered unable to bring forth the resultant suffering. So that's actually like a pretty amazing thing if you think about it. Yeah. And so the purpose we covered, the need for purpose, number 2. The third is the vital necessity, the ningu, the vital necessity or the ultimate purpose. And so Geshe said for those on the path of individual liberation, it would be the state of an enlightened hearer or solitary realizer, a Shravaka or a Pratyeka Buddha. And for those Bodhisattva practitioners, the vital necessity, the ultimate purpose is the state of complete Buddhahood.
다 던지지 이사 던지는 기기 대용하셔 봐라. 기발은 좋아요래. 기발 대용하셔 봐라. 예전은 좋아요래. 가만 대화요. 이사 된 대화세.
And the fourth one, jelwa or relationship, this means that being able to achieve this ultimate purpose, it depends on understanding the need for the purpose and the initial purpose. So we understand the relationship between all these points.
다 야 아마존 카피원도 벨레 페네 라칼레 자니라 로추그니에시스 스칼레 자니라 타마 다 두만이 네네 그게 temposhunate 디디레스.
And when this is attained is after, right, we have put in those efforts and they have come to fruition. So for example, Lama Tsongkhapa for 19 or 20 years kind of engaged in intensive spiritual practice and study. And on the basis of that was able to achieve that realization of emptiness. Well, and it was said that actually when he had that realization and achieved that liberation, it was at the moment of that realization that he composed this very text in praise of dependent arising. The third verse, Geshe said, is an exhortation to listen. It's an exhortation for the people to listen to the text. Yeah. The fourth one explains the worthiness of the text to be listened to. The worthiness of the text. The worthiness of the text to be listened to. Yeah. So there is nothing more wondrous than this to praise you for, which is that dependent arising. And now we begin the body of the text. Ngapadine. Kangang Kiena Rapa. So now we begin the actual body of the text, starting with verse number 5. So I'll just read the verse so people can know where we are. Whatsoever depends on conditions, that is devoid of intrinsic existence. So it's the verse starting there. Oh, and this is actually a summary verse, Geshe said, that explains the meaning of the text. It's like a kind of like in a capsule explains the meaning. Whatsoever depends on conditions, that is devoid of intrinsic existence. What excellence instruction can there be more amazing than this statement? So if we were to say that, so what we're explaining is that Gyudang Kien Latene Kariyena Rangshin Gi Drupa Maris. So whatever depends on conditions, Geshe said, because of that relationship of dependence, right? It is empty of inherent existence. So we understand that when we say empty of inherent existence, right, that doesn't mean nothingness. It's empty of that inherent existence due to the dependent relationship. This is a very important point. And there is no instruction that is superior than this. So what excellent instruction can there be more amazing than this statement? And we need to study emptiness based upon this pronouncement. And in terms of our study and practice of emptiness, there's sort of two paths, lamkanirwa, two paths that one could follow.
하고서라 초초르더니 제치 가리이나 예 가리이나 하고서 제일 띠비 찬을 다 두만이 로가로야지.
So one way is to see that any phenomena, any dharma, any phenomena that we see whatsoever, it arises dependently. It arises dependently. This is the first of the two paths.
하고서라 다 디샤는 로와 이나 로지지 메바 두만이 초와 가지 쉬치는 거 하고서 렌데 요바도 마 요바도 다 강가 그게 요 카시리스를 유미야 시리가.
And on the basis of understanding this dependent arising, then our understanding of emptiness, as well as other doctrines such as karma, cause and effect, this will only improve and improve. The second one is if we look for an inherent existence, if we look for some pinpointable existence, we won't be able to find it. So that unfindability is the second path. So many different schools of philosophy, what we would consider the lower schools, for example, the middle way autonomous school, the Majjhimika Sautantrika and so forth, they're still holding that there is a dagji yurirwa, a valid basis of designation for phenomena. Dagji yutso? Yeah. And that means that the person has to be arising due to that valid basis of designation. Yeah. Loso. Yeah. Oh, okay. So the holders of the Madhyamaka Prasangika school, such as Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti, they hold this thought that there's a valid basis of designation as mistaken. And they say that if there is a valid basis of designation, and if we talk about the self of persons, for the person, if there is a valid basis of designation for the person, there's only sort of like two ways it can go. And the image they give is dul dinangula chikwa. Is a snake in like a hollow stalk, like a bamboo or something. So the snake has only two ways to get out, either up the top of the bamboo stalk or through the bottom of the bamboo stalk. Yeah. So Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti say, if you're saying that there has to be some element of true existence to define a phenomena through the basis of the designation, there's only two directions that such an analysis can lead to, either the extreme of existence or the extreme of nihilism, the extreme of non-existence. So therefore, you can't say that a phenomena is a phenomena exists independent on the basis of designation. So now we get into the words. So the words here are very important. All we can say is there is a phenomena which is designated dependently on the basis of that basis of existence, that basis of designation. I'm sorry. So the Sautantrikas and some of the other schools say, they say that there is an element of true existence to the phenomena because the phenomena is a dependent arising.
빠데다와도 아마 탄저와 관계 로지 있어와 여 말에 가려서 땡데로.
But the Prasangakas, like Chandrakirti and Nagarjuna, they argue it in exactly the opposite direction. They say that there is no inherent existence because all phenomena are mere dependent arising. So they use the argument with the reverse logic. So this is a real philosophical disagreement here, right? Between the Prasangakas, the middle way consequentialists, and the other schools. Yeah. And so in order to be able to understand this distinction correctly, we actually need to turn to Jijapa. So in order to understand that, we have to turn to Chandrakirti's commentary on Aryadeva's 400 verses. Yeah, that's So the subject, the self. So on the basis of that, whatever So in this way, whatever phenomena arises dependently, cannot have an element of true existence. And so this is actually pointing towards the object of negation. So when we say selflessness, the lack of a self, when we say selflessness, the object of negation here, what is selfless, is a self of persons that can be designated independently of other things, a self of persons that can be designated independently.
No matter.
Yeah. So the self, or the capital letter I, you can think of it, that is the object of negation. In other words, what we're trying to refute. That self is a self that arises independently, is a self that arises without dependence upon other factors, is a self that arises without causes and conditions. And because there is no such a self that exists independently, that exists in absence of dependence on other things, that is what we mean when we say selflessness. So there is no such existent self, independently existing self. However, we sort of insist that there is, and due to this mistaken perception, we fall into all sorts of difficulties. Yeah. So for example, if we have a particular dish or meal that we've previously enjoyed, if we see that dish displayed in a restaurant or a supermarket, we'll again purchase it and buy it based upon that previous experience. And so because of our previous experience with that particular type of food or that particular dish. When we eat it for the second time, we might remember that deliciousness and enjoy the experience. However, sometimes the food is rotten and we get indigestion or even food poisoning after it. And what does that show us? That shows us that that second time we ate that food, it does not exist in the way that it appears. We carried over the appearance from that previous experience, but the dish does not exist in the way that it appears. So this misperception that we talked about, Geshe said, this has us believing that whatever the appearance that we're seeing through that lens of attachment, that we're seeing through that lens of aversion, that it exists in the way that it appears. So it does not exist in the way that it appears. It is empty of natural existence. So in this way, we have concluded a brief discussion, and we've moved a couple of verses further in praise of dependent arising. So thank you. So firstly, with a happy mind, we will dedicate the merits, and then we can take questions. Changju zemju rimboje maje panam jeju reji jewan yamba meba yang gone gondu bewa sho tongni tawa rimboje maje panam jeju reji jewan yamba meba yang Gone gondo pewa sho jambe bao jidar kempa ta kundu sambo deyan de jinde de da kungi jesu dalo chir gewa dida tamje rabdungo dusu shebe gewa tamje gi Ngawa ganra chodu ngabade dagi kewe zawa dikun kyang zambo cheji ratu ngawa ki. May all of the 6 types of beings within samsara enjoy the perfect causes of happiness and the perfect result of happiness. In order to facilitate this, the existence of the Buddha Dharma is important. So may the Buddha Dharma continue to abide in a stable way for a long time. Yeah. All right, I'll just put the volume on so that we can take questions.
Listen.
Yes, so if there are questions, please go ahead. I'm not hearing people, so I turned my volume up, so I should hear people, but maybe there's just no questions.
Testing. I think you can hear me. Yes.
Sorry?
You can hear me?
Yeah, now
Yes.
I can. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, anybody wish to answer
But
questions?
you're barely audible though.
Sorry.
Sorry.
But I think I was just saying. I think people can speak if they can be heard if they wish to. Oh, maybe we a story.
Yes. This is Kimberly. I was thinking the same thing, Dave. Story time.
Yeah, no, like, I mean, no, like we can do a story. That's okay. But I was also I'm like surprised people don't have questions about, especially the last part, because I think it was quite complicated, but I don't know, maybe it's just complicated for me. So that's cool. Yeah, I'll ask Geshe if he can tell a story.
I'll try one if you want to hear a question. I just don't know how well I can express it.
Yes, no, go ahead, because I'd like to explore the last bit, because I think it that material is pretty challenging. So go ahead. I believe it's Marjorie.
Yes, it's Marjorie. It's not fully formulated, but I'll give it a try. I'm trying to come up with an analogy for the object to be negated. It works for my mind. And so what I'm trying to come up with, and I want to see if this could be kind of correct, is that, okay, you might have a moon reflecting on various puddles of water. And so that reflection might be like our various incarnations, maybe from a timeless sense, And so is the object, in this analogy, would the object be negated that the reflection does not exist without the moon? Does that make any sense?
So the object, just to make sure I understood you correctly, Marjorie, the object to be negated is the perception that the reflection in the puddle of water exists without the moon.
Right, that exists by itself, and that's what we want.
Exists by itself. Gotcha.
There's something up here that's causing the reflection.
Yes, okay. Gagja samlo tangna roa nanso perna so chung mambochi gyuna charba babe jela dene so chung dinso dua roa so chung dinso mambochik dawa sharna roa dene nanso dawa so chung dinso nangla tong tugi dua roa dene gaksha labna roa gaksha kare dapo res labna dawa mepe gi netso la tene so chung den so nang la di tong tu gi duas di gagja dapo rebesa
dawa meba de
yeah dawa ngene yo mares ro ko gyu zo ra chi ne di yo mares di samlo tangye di dapo chik di gajja gi samlo tangye dapo chik
ya te chung no dawa ji wa was
yeah
ta te gajja na bushi
ale
chung cha cha ga wa
yeah ko dawa mepe shargi res
ro mage dawa ji du so
yes
gajja chung de gajja
yeah, so Geshe said that like we can't say it's the actual object of negation, but yeah, we can say it's like a bridge or a way of thinking similar to that object of negation, that yes, like that there's a moon in that puddle of water, that is the moon actually in that puddle of water, that perception that it's there without the cause of the moon in the sky. Yes, you could say that.
Yeah, gajja se ne tena nginel meke konya ba gajja se.
So the object of negation is the apprehension of what is mistaken or what isn't there, right? That's why it's the object of negation. And there's also more than one object of negation, right? Some of them are a little bit more coarser and some of them are a little more subtle. And this unfolds with our understanding.
Yeah.
So whatever sort of object that we perceive, whether any kind of object, a nice food, and any other type of object that we perceive, part of that appearance is actually nominally there. There is part of that appearance that's there. But our ignorance reifies that. It exaggerates what actually is there. And the exaggeration is partly that apprehension that it exists inherently. Yeah. So an analogy that we could think of is the analogy of a movie theater, right? When you go to the cinema, you look ahead of you onto the screen and you see the movie, right? Without thinking that it's actually behind you that the projector where the images start to come from. So in the same way, when we perceive the appearance of an object, we see that as only coming from the object side, but we don't understand that a large part of it begins with our own mind. So our mind is like the movie projector in that analogy.
나도 저기 있잖아. 저기 짓도 될 줄도 마찬가지. 북쪽에는 진화 샤야 되라. 또 주로 야이다.
Yeah. So we don't see the main part, right? The main part of that image that we're perceiving, which is the projector. Instead, we see just a very nominal aspect of it, the appearance of that image on the screen in front of us, and we say that that's the main thing. So there's like a fundamental misapprehension there. And that's what we say when it's inherently existent, right? It inherently exists from the side of the object. That's like saying that the movie picture is coming from the screen, but actually the screen is just reflecting what's coming from the projector. Yes. Oh, geez.
Thank you. That helps. I think the movie analogy is probably better. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you're very welcome. You're very welcome, Marjorie. Did that bring any other questions in, folks?
I have a question, if possible.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, Dr. Geshe. I'm trying to work with the object of negation, and I still make the mistake that I reify emptiness itself. So when I think of emptiness, I try to work with the negation, but things arise from emptiness, right? So I'm not sure how to proceed there.
Okay, yes, I think I got you, Sylvia. I think I understand what you're pointing at. Sylvia chana di gagja di tompani korla samlotandu ko gagja samlotanya tabche chegi yeres. Yine ko truk drogidu karin sananganso kadi yine tompa 통니 낭네 직 중기열에서 때네 토마니 낭네 직 중기열에서 디 여자레스 각자다고 잘 기억하래서 Yeah. So we do say like from the sphere of emptiness, right? Or from within emptiness things arise. Yes, we do say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like la dang karina. So, but what this actually means is from the sphere of emptiness or from the state of emptiness, we're actually talking about the mind, which is meditating or thinking of emptiness. And then from that mind, if it's in the context of a sadhana, right? From that mind, the deity arises. From that mind, the offerings to the deity arise. So it's something like that.
Yeah.
So when we say this in the context of the sadhana, right, from within the sphere of emptiness, we're not just thinking about emptiness in a nebulous way. We're thinking about the mind that is meditating on emptiness. And then from that mind meditating on emptiness and the subtle wind and so forth, the deity arises. So we could think about it in that way.
Yeah. So
Geshe also said, though, but in terms of your question about this and the object of negation, it's not really a problem to say something is arising within the sphere of emptiness, because that is what's happening. It would only be a problem if we were saying if something arises from the sphere, if something is arising from the sphere of inherent existence, or if something is arising from the sphere of true existence, right? Then it would be a problem. Ine gagja di dang candiduas. Gagja se na rangjingi me barwa. Yeah, rangjingi drupas, right? Sorry. But the object of negation, when we speak of the object of negation, we're talking about inherent existence itself, right? It's through emptiness. The tompani giguning anso gagja me drogiduarwa. Yeah. The emptiness is what kind of negates the object of negation. Sorry, that wasn't stated very elegantly, but that's really what it is. So the emptiness negates the object of negation. It's like an active thing. Did that help you at all, Sylvia?
Yes. The last sentence was mind-blowing. I have to think about that one, that the emptiness negates the object of negation. I have to ponder it.
Yeah.
But I thought that emptiness is what actually makes anything possible at all, right? Because it's the antidote of inherent existence.
Nganso gaksha mepa soe gine so di tompani re duas yine yang nganso tompani la tene semgi yunten chik yong tu gires di yong tu gires karin sena tompani seria di kandes lagre rangshingi drupa gi nangwa gi nyembo re duas. Yeah.
Tumbani sena roji tripping no ti nyembo sayo maris.
Ale.
Tumbani ser koro yeji yerovas.
Yeah.
Tumbani sono tu ke semte.
Yeah.
Roji yeba sono tu ke nyembo res.
It's actually not the emptiness which is the antidote that gets rid of the affliction, really. The younger Sundangin Kalichin. Yeah. So the mind which realizes the emptiness of the inherent existence of that particular object, that is actually the antidote to the mind, which is misapprehending a true existence of that object. Yeah. But when we just say emptiness by itself, Geshe said, that's not precise enough, because emptiness of an object is always abiding together with the object.
Yes, thank you very much. That clarifies a lot, and I have lots to think about now.
Yeah, no, and of course, come back next time with more questions. Yeah, younger. Yeah, but he said it's a good question anyway. So hopefully. But Geshe said, yeah, think more about this question, and if you have any follow-up points, please feel free to share.
Thank you.
Rangjin yupa dang rangjin mepa. Right. So just to kind of maybe state it in a different way, maybe it's more clear that mind, which is cognizing the lack of inherent existence, the emptiness of inherent existence of a particular object, is the antidote to the mind that is misperceiving inherent existence of an object. Yeah. So as a beginner, of course, we're very habituated, right, to this perception of things existing inherently. So when we start to think about this, we might not be able to use that seeing the emptiness of inherent existence as an antidote right away, but this will improve and improve as we become like more cultivated. It's like when you've eaten well and when you've had a nice meal and you're feeling relaxed, it's a lot easier to be patient, right? When a little bit of anger is arising. So in that way, like once we become more accustomed to emptiness, more used to it, it'll also be more easy for us to use. Yeah. So in terms of your understanding of emptiness, right, a really good time to check how much benefit you've gained from your understanding is sorry. Ale. Yeah. So for example, if you're trying to practice patience, right, the best time to see if you've achieved a measure of success in that is when you're angry, when you're experiencing an obstacle. That's really the time to check. And so that patience anger example is also applies to emptiness, right? The more familiar we become with it, then those times that we use it, we can see how our understanding is. If when there's a big obstacle or if somebody has done something that would normally upset us, then there's like a football match between anger and patience wins, then we know that we have been successful in our cultivation of patience. I see a hand
you
up.
very much.
I think it's Dave. Go ahead.
Sue, did you have a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Earlier in the other half of the teachings, not dependent arising, but King of Prayers, Geshe, you mentioned Buddha Shakyamuni is in Prajaparamita, and he's the fourth Buddha. Are the other three also, do they not also dwell within Prajaparamita?
No, actually, what he was saying is that the Buddha said that wherever the Prajnaparamita is taught and practiced, he abides in that very place. How that started was Geshe and I were having a discussion over whether Shakyamuni Buddha would be regarded as a past Buddha or a present Buddha. Because nominally, right, he manifested the passing away in this world. And so he and I were having a discussion, and Geshe said, you could say he's a past Buddha because he manifested that aspect of passing away. But he also said, wherever the Prajnaparamita is taught and practiced, I still abide in that place. So maybe he's not passed away.
All right. And what happened to the other three?
Okay. Nanso tuze di kaprola kelpa di kaprola sangye ji yore rwa. Tomba chomden de ngema sumden so kawa yore sa. Yeah. Yeah, kawa yore sa. Kare chungsons. Usungdong den so kawa yore sta bachi. Kare chungsons. Yeah, so they return to their own Buddha fields where they continue to kind of engage in activities to benefit sentient beings, but they are no longer in our particular world.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's they also made drogyo marero sangene. Yeah. Yeah, like it's the Buddhas, right? They don't disappear or anything. It's just they, according to the causes and conditions of particular sentient beings, they might be manifesting in a Buddha field or in another place where they can most effectively benefit them.
Or all of those places at once.
Sorry?
Or maybe all of those places at the same moment.
Konso jigten chatsang wa tusa chigyo chogire to us. That doesn't happen because it's not required, because each of those different places has an affinity with a particular enlightened being, and the enlightened being knows where they'll be of most benefit. So they go to the place where beings have the most present affinity with them.
Okay, because I thought that they could be in several places at one moment.
Konso sache chik tutsa chik sache ni yo chogires. Yine goye manduro. Yeah. No, Geshe said, yes, that is true, but on the same sense, they don't need to be in every single place because different Buddhas have particular karmic affinities with particular sentient beings and worlds. But yes, they can be anywhere. Nominally a Buddha, when we visualize them there, yes, they can. But yeah, he's just explaining that they abide in the place where they have the affinity, where they can benefit the most.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question. So Marjorie's example of the moon or the example of the film projector. So it's easy to see how what's on the screen isn't real, but then I'm wondering, okay, then is the projector more real than that? And so is the answer to that question that this is where you get into the infinite regress of causes and conditions?
Dave, I'm going to go nearer to my computer.
Oh,
so
is it too
you.
quiet?
I'm not sure if it's my speaker or your mic. But
Is it? Sorry, it's too quiet.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, much better. Much
Okay,
better.
okay. Yeah, so talking about the moon so it's easy to understand how the screen is not real. What's on the screen is not real. But then if you said that the projector behind you and the mind or some aspect of the mind is what's actually where what is more real in a sense, or more direct, then I'm wondering, okay, my mind starts to think, okay, so is the projector, or that part of my mind which is the projector, is that have some kind of inherent existence? It seems more likely then, because the screen doesn't.
Gotcha. Okay.
So then is that part of the mind that produces the projection, is that just where we talk about the infinite regress of causes and conditions?
Okay. Nganso ngama nganso di lonyen tasagi nesu chiktu roa. Tene nganso lonyen yosagi re karpo di la tene yongi re duas. Ine ngene yena roa di tso mares tso ko loso e machine gi yongse dabo chik re duas roa. Tene ine loso e machine di tso dabo chik yores dene ko dokpa chik sason. Dene lonyen soya gi sacha di rangshin gi drupa dabo rebes. Roa kari insana di dabo chik lao son dene de la tene nganso di kari like gyudang kiengi tsam mepargi chungsa dabo chik yores kandes yong yores.
Me ta kanga sono matuas. Na pechi res.
Yeah.
Pena. Kene no anda mara shagi duas.
Yeah.
Na no anda mara de koro ngini no shas.
So yeah, so Geshe said that the examples kind of facilitate things, but they're not to be taken absolutely literally. So the purpose of the movie projector and the movie screen example is to open us up to the possibility that the object does not exist in the way that it appears from the side of the object, right? It's to start that kind of investigation. So we semdi so double check so yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of like the first step in the process of deconstructing this, right? So the movie that we're watching in front of us, we understand that the main source of that image is not actually that screen, that cloth, that white cloth in front of us, but the main thing is actually the projector that is behind us. And so we think that the object is existing in the way that it appears from the side of the object, right? That the appearance is something that is coming solely from the object's side. So this line of reasoning helps us to begin to question that assumption. Also, to parse this example out a little bit more, because of seeing that appearance as coming from the side of the object and believing in that, then the characters that appear in the film, like the bad person, like the hero, the heroine, right, or the evil enemy, we have attachment and aversion that we experience as very real from seeing those images. So, but if we think about where the projector is, we'll see that there's nothing existing from the side of what's in front of us at all, right? That these images are all created by a collection of lights emitted from that projector behind us. So what does that show us? That shows us that based upon these lights that are projected towards the screen, those images appear, but our experience of like, dislike, right, attachment and aversion for the characters in the movie, that's something that we've completely created from the side of our own mind, right? So this exercise is not meant to be taken on an absolute level, but what this exercise is trying to do is to get us to question our habitual assumption that every appearance that we have of an object, that object exists in the way that it appears from its own side. So that's kind of where that analogy is placed.
하고서
하고서.
다 너무 가디시야 이나 그 매춘지도 지바이다 또 뭐네 파간데서 저거는 따지서 도나 키네와 소토요.
And on the basis of this, right, if we understand that things are not necessarily existing in the way that they appear from the side of the object, then when an affliction like attachment or aversion arises in relationship to the object, we see that the fire of that affliction is actually something that is created by our own mind. And then we can address that on the level of our own mind, right? So in this way, it's very useful. And then we can put the fire of the affliction out, right, before it completely overwhelms us. But once you, as you know, once you have a 5-alarm fire that's going through the whole house, it's quite difficult to put it out. But if you get it when it's a little spark, it's much easier. Yeah, but Dave, I want to just press Geshe a little bit more about your, because I actually understand what you're saying. With this projection, it seems like you're still saying there's some sort of like inherent existence, right?
Yeah, what is the base?
Yeah, so I just raised the point because I think it's very valid that Dave made, that it seems like you're saying that the movie projector, or the mind that it's an analogy for, is inherently existent. And Geshe said that the example is not meant to be a complete explanation of the ultimate nature of emptiness. The example is meant to challenge our misapprehension that the appearance of objects exists exactly as they appear from the side of the object. Yeah. So it's important to understand the limitations, right, of these many analogies, and there's many similar scriptural analogies. Actually, they're trying to get us to a particular place of understanding, but it's not meant to be an exhaustive presentation. Yeah. So Geshe says an example of how this works is if you look at the scriptures, the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas talk about emptiness like the sky, or they say the sky like emptiness, or the sky like mind. Of course, emptiness and the sky are not the same thing, right? Like we can see the sky very clearly. Just look out your window and you see it now. But can you see emptiness, right? We can't see that. But the sky is like a stepping stone to get us to that point of like conceptualizing this emptiness so that we can think about it. So the sky is vast and has no obstructions. Similarly, the mind that realizes the emptiness of phenomena is not obstructed by the perceptions of true existence. So the analogies are sort of stepping stones to get us to where we want to go, right? But they're not exhaustive. Yeah. So as we talk about these things, it's really good to explore the limitations of some of the analogies and also to refine our understanding. It is said that if we want to understand emptiness, it's like trying to start a fire with 2 stones. We have to continually hit those stones together again and again and again until we get a spark. And really, in terms of trying to reach an understanding of emptiness, it's much the same process. Yeah. And we have to engage with it continuously, right? Because if you just keep putting the stone down after hitting it 1 or 2 times, you're never going to be at it long enough to get the spark, right? So we have to continuously engage. Yeah. He's like, just when the stones are about to get hot, that's when we get tired and put it down. It's like the same way with emptiness a lot of the time, right? Yeah.
Dana, do you have a
So
question?
Dave, did you have a follow-up?
No, that's fine.
You're good?
Yep.
Okay. But I also thought that. Yeah. No, Geshe said that it's important to understand. He's glad this was asked because it's important to understand the limitations of this explanation. I actually had the same thought as Dave had. To me, it sounded almost like a mind-only view. Na sem samba dabure tonsong karin sen the losa di semi na chatsang la semla teni yongi res samswa. Geshe said, absolutely, though, you need that Chitta mantra, right? That mind-only understanding of emptiness to come to the prasangika view. So yeah, that's okay if the projector is like a mind-only understanding in a way. Yeah.
Okay. Dana, and maybe Dee had a question.
Oh, go ahead, Dave. Yep.
Dana or Dee?
Hi, is it okay if I go first or
Yes,
does
please.
Dave
Go ahead.
first?
Go ahead.
My question doesn't relate to emptiness, but it's more about what you and Geshe said at the beginning about keeping our minds and our bodies stable and well, and also what you said about the Dalai Lama being in hospital and seeing and feeling that he couldn't help beings but send them prayers, right, for a better rebirth. So when we see the suffering and injustice that affects others, how can we make sure that we stay well and come to terms with it, especially when it is people who we can't help directly? So to give you an example, I have an acquaintance, not a friend I can help directly, but he's a really good person. He's a firefighter in his spare time. He volunteers in the channel to save migrants who come over on boats. But recently, his young daughter died in a car crash and his marriage fell apart. And
sorry, Dana, I have to translate this first part because this is really long and I'm going to forget what you
Oh,
what
I'm
you
so
told me at the
sorry. It's
beginning.
basically to
Yeah,
ask how we
no
do
problem.
that.
Just let me translate that first bit. Yeah, sorry. Ko chena nganso ngoma di Jawa Rinpoche menkang de pe kapula roa dene chilula tona dene shawa dang denso nganso di munam jaya matok nganso di katuk chene ropa che tugimendua roa dene ngaronso di semshen jendag denso ropa chego res samne dene ganso kandes chik samlo tangur yores karin sena mambuchik ganso dunya tong ganso katuk so tugiminduas. Okay, sorry, continue.
I'll keep this bit short. Sorry. So other than thinking about suffering, the reality of suffering and impermanence, I mean, I can understand someone like the Dalai Lama's prayers helping these people, but how do we manage that from a Buddhist perspective? How do we deal with that kind of suffering of acquaintances? Do you know what I mean? How do we stay well? It sounds selfish question because our prayers I don't think my prayers would really help.
So munlam jamna pentok shedamanduas karin sena Jawa Rinpoche ko jangshu sempa champo yensa munlam jamna nupa tets yorerwa yine nganso di munlam nupa sheda yoma resrwa tene ngaronso di paropo di tets tarimpo yena nganso karisona katuk ropa che tugimenduas tene di kola kande samlo tanguresa.
말에 다 티콜 메이크업에 노초도 그게 배도 요새 커버로 왔어. 이나이 가로서 다 대제스 그게야 됐잖아.
Yeah.
이전에야 유골레는 고로서 배도 제다 고가된데 샤그로 왔어.
So the prayers can yes, I mean it is difficult for the prayers to affect an immediate change, but what it is said that the prayers can do is that the prayers can be a condition to like ripen something positive in the other person, and then for their own kind of positive causes to ripen and be able to diminish the problem.
배나 다 너지 코러스 내가 뭐지 다 봐주도 내가 뭐지 지금 왔어. 다른 코러스 봤다 이제 미라가 되지가 코러스 겸바도 되는 거라지.
So for example, in Tibet, especially before machinery, they had to rely on animals to do a lot of the farm work. And so it is said that the better owner of the animals, in addition to having like the yak or the oxen plow the field and so forth, they would also take the yak and the oxen to circumambulate the stupas and so forth as a way of helping them accumulate merit. And you also see, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, when he encounters different sentient beings, animals, and so forth, he always takes time to like recite mantras and so forth. And that's just to kind of put a little bit of the condition of the Dharma within those beings, right? And also remember the story of the great Pandita, who in his previous lifetime, he had been a bird that heard Dharma Kirti reciting the treatises. And then in his life, he became in the next life, after he passed away from his bird life as a human, he became quite a great scholar, right? So actually, all of these little things that we do, they can make a difference. Oh, okay. Sorry, my mistake. It wasn't Dharmakirti, it was Vasubandhu. So this bird would be listening to Vasubandhu reciting his scripture, but then about halfway through the scripture, the bird would fall asleep. So in the next lifetime, when he had the human rebirth, he was able to memorize like the first half of the scripture very, very easily, but not but the second half was like harder for him to understand. So Vasubandhu also had quite a long lifetime. So after that bird passed away that was listening to Vasubandhu recite the text, it was said that also on the basis of hearing all of that recitation, he became a student of Vasubandhu in his subsequent lifetime as well. And also, there's particular sentient beings who we may be very connected to and able to help, but we don't know if we don't try. So that's why Geshe said, he often says, there's particular beings that are waiting for us, you and me, to achieve enlightenment, because we have very strong affinities and connections with particular sentient beings. And when we get enlightened, we're going to be in the best position to help them. Yeah. So, but of course, we can't have the expectation that whatever prayers or aspirations we make, we're going to see like a huge benefit to those people, right? Because this is something that happens slowly in stages. So we just do our best.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry if I missed parts of anyone's question, because like, I don't know, we fixed one thing on the computer and today my speaker is very faint. So I'm having problems hearing folks. So I hope that you got answers to the questions. I think I understood most, but I may have missed little bits. I guess it's like, really? No, the sound is really very faint today. I don't know why. So Dave, unless there's anything else, shall we end for the day?
There were, yeah. Did Dee have a question? Did you?
Oh, yes. Yeah, go ahead. Hello? I heard someone say they had a question and then their voice disappeared.
I think she put in the chat that she does not have a question.
Okay, all right, sorry. Okay, all right. Sorry about that. We just don't want to leave you folks, but we need to let you get on with your lives. So thank you very much, and we shall see you next Sunday. Geshe, thanks everyone.